I think spring's here. Nice. Sierra 2, Sierra 1. Look at this thing's crazy.
One more in the back, obviously. And I'll go get one more.
This poor fellow over here, he'd have to hand load him, but that's pretty amazing. That's crazy. All right. We got quite the selection. That's alfalfa. We don't need that. Don't need straw. That's the stuff right there. Timothy bluegrass. Man, 28 bucks a bale. Nice facility. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to my new tow rig. If you knew me before, I sported a 2015 F-150 for the longest time. I made do with it for the time that I had it. I knew a gas truck was going to be a struggle for me. I had to up the game a little bit just because our trips are getting a little longer and I need a diesel, not just for the fact of towing my Suzuki, but also we have a couple horses and we go get hay, you know, every 2 or 3 months. So had to step up to a diesel and came across an opportunity I couldn't pass up. This truck is a 2004 and a half GMC Sierra. It is the 6.6 Duramax. It's the LLY. You know, it has its fair share of common problems, but the biggest thing it seems to be that I have found out is that the intercooler and the radiator, I think, is just not sufficient enough to keep up with the added power. This truck has the biggest VVT turbo offered in the Duramax. I don't know if that's for present times now, but I think that was the main issue for the overheating problems. They also have a necked down turbo inlet mouthpiece for some reason. I don't know why they did that, but I have already upgraded to a bigger mouthpiece. It was just an Amazon piece. You can get one from S&B for like 200 bucks, or I think it's upward of $200. So I was like, well, $70 is just fine for me. It looks like the exact same part, just doesn't have S&B on it. So overall, the truck is in fantastic shape for the age. It is a 2004, so it's almost 20 years old. But it really doesn't seem to perform like that. Got 130,000 miles on it, four-wheel drive, and it's an SLT, so it's got heated leather seats. The seats were actually reupholstered black, which is kind of odd, you know, because it's a beige interior. And that was kind of one of the first things I noticed about it. I was curious to see if it had been redone, and I asked him and he said yes, the previous owner actually had it just freshly done before he bought it. So I'll kind of give you a backstory on the transaction, which worked out perfectly in my favor, in both of our favors. I found this on Facebook Marketplace. The truck was listed at like $25,000, which is what these trucks are going for these days. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but it's reality. And I had to get something that was used and not have over 200,000 miles. And in that price range, it's really hard to find something that's either not been totally lifted and just beat on, and got all kinds of modifications that might not be my style. So this truck is literally bone stock, minus like airbags and like little things like that. It's a bone stock motor, tranny, everything is bone stock, which is what I wanted. I wanted to, if I was going to do anything to it, which I'll do things to it over time, but as the truck sits right now, it's working very well for me. So anyways, but to get back to the story, I had 2015 F-150. It was the 2.7 liter Ecoboost, and it was a fantastic truck. It was, and I'm not even kidding, I'm not lying by saying that that was the best vehicle I probably will ever own. And this truck has a lot of owning to live up to, because I think I bought it with like 24,000 miles or something. So it was pretty new. And I put 100,000 miles on that truck. I just used it like a truck, and it was a fantastic truck. It towed everything that I wanted it to tow. I've been to Sand Hollow several times with my Samurai. I brought home my Project Chevy vehicle over here, which is a 53 3800 Chevy pickup, and the cab is what's in the shop. You've probably seen it in a previous video. That I picked up in deep Idaho, like really deep Idaho. I'm talking like a gravel road for an hour and a half to get to him one way, and then it was a big fiasco. But the truck did super well, and I did not want to ever get rid of that truck. We made a promise to never ever sell it, and my wife loved driving it. It was easy to see out of. It drove like a car, but it felt like a truck. It was just a great vehicle. And you know, people give you a hard time for driving a gas truck all the time, and I'm in the group setting if everyone's got a diesel that's juiced up and they'll leave me in the dust. I mean, of course, like I loved my F-150, and I'll get there eventually. It was hard to keep up on the freeway, like especially going out east where it gets super windy and you're towing. It was a lot of like energy you would spend on a 10-11 hour tow, and you know, you'd be pretty tired by the end of the day. And then, you know, I'm starting to do that more regularly, and you know, as I'm aging, I like to have more comfort. You know, I was willing to sacrifice driving a gas truck for a long time. I knew eventually I would get a diesel. I didn't know what diesel it was going to be. I just know I had a price range of, you know, say around like 30 grand at the most, because that's all that I can comfortably afford if I was to sell my truck and get another one. I didn't want to be sucked into another car payment. I had just paid it off. What had happened is I saw this truck for sale, and every once in a while, I'm weird. I'll like comment on someone's thing for sale, and I'll be like, wow, that's a nice truck, or that's a nice car, or that's nice whatever. Good luck with sale. Like, no interest in. That's probably annoying for some people, but that's just something that I do. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful truck. You know, if I had the money, I would totally like come and get it, because I messaged him saying, are you a private seller or are you a dealer? And he said that he was private, and I was like, damn, okay, well, I can't trade it in, you know, to dealer and do, like, if I had to finance something, I would need to, or whatever. And so I was like, shoot, okay, if I sold my truck, I would definitely buy your truck. And he goes, what kind of truck do you have? And so I told him I have a F-150, a 2015. And he said, send me a picture. And so I was like, all right, whatever. So I sent him like one picture of it towing hay one day, you know, sent him the picture, and he said, that's a nice truck. And I was like, thanks. I mean, you know, we love the truck, and I would have I'd have to like sell it to you first, you know, and that could be some time. So I didn't even want to offer the fact of like trading. And he was like, you know what? Me and my wife are actually looking for an F-150. And I was like, there's no freaking way. I was like, what are the chances that someone wants to sell a vehicle, to trade exactly for basically a downgrade, in my opinion, right? Because a diesel to a gasser, to me, would be a downgrade. And so he said that they sold their RV trailer because they bought it during COVID, and sold their house, lived in a trailer for a few months to buy another house, like a lot of people I know that did. He ended up not needing the diesel anymore, which works in my favor. I was like, perfect, I need a diesel. And he was like, you know, send me some more pictures, send me some more details, and I took care of that truck top to bottom. I got everything I wrote down in a record. I mean, I took really good care of that vehicle. And so he had nothing to worry about. And he was like, well, I mean, I'm down if you're down. And I was like, absolutely, like 100%. This is on like a Tuesday or something, and we both work, or he lives in Tacoma, which is a few hours away. And so I was like, okay, well, I can't really do it during a weekday. If you can wait till Saturday. He's like, yep, no problem. And like every day would go by, and I was like thinking, man, I hope this guy doesn't flake out. Hopefully he doesn't get someone saying, I'll go buy it for 25 grand and give him the cash. So I was like biting my fingernails, hopefully that it wasn't gonna get swept from underneath me, which would happen. Saturday came around. He's like, you still good? I'm like, yep. So I met up with him, and we met at like some restaurant in Chehalis, which was kind of like, not, I wouldn't say a midpoint, but we called it a midpoint. I did most of the driving. Went ahead and took it for a spin. I was like, this thing's super nice, super clean. And he looked at mine, and we drove it. He loved it. And I was like, let's do this. And he's like, absolutely. So that's basically how it worked. Couldn't have been a better situation, because I live in Washington, and a lot of other states do this. They have a sales tax, which I don't like the T word, but I lived in Oregon for my whole life. I just recently moved up to Washington. And there's no sales tax down in Oregon. So if you buy a car, it's like 8% or 8.3%. I mean, every percent matters at this point when you're buying a vehicle. Being that we both traded, there was no technically form of purchase or transaction. So we both didn't have to pay, you know, what would have been of 8% on 25,000 is a couple $1,000s. And then on top of your licensing and all that stupid stuff. So it really was just like a best case scenario. I basically paid $163 for this truck, because I just had to buy the registration and title and tags, which was like 160 bucks. I was like, this is totally sweet. And what I've noticed with this truck so far is that it's fucking beautiful. It's a beautiful looking truck, has no dents, no scratches, or like hardly nothing wrong with it. What I learned with the truck is that it gets really good gas mileage for a V8 diesel, which like a Ford, I'm pretty sure, like my father-in-law has a 2016 Power Stroke 4-door long bed, bone stock. It's not deleted or anything like that. And he gets like 12 miles a gallon or something like that. And I was coming back from Chehalis, which is, you know, 2.5 hour drive. And so I was kind of able to get comfortable with it and kind of see what kind of mileage I was getting on the highway. And I was super shocked. I was getting, I think like 20 or 21. I was like, that can't be right. And so the more I drive it, it's like regularly in the 19s, 20s, 21s if I'm just on the highway. That's a huge bonus, because it's not like I'm gonna drive the freaking Taurus around everywhere. I hate driving that car, like if it's not for work. You know, if I want to drive around town, I'm not getting 10 miles a gallon or whatever. So that's like a huge plus. That's basically the gist of the transaction of how I got the truck and how I feel like I got so lucky. I come from more like either Ford or it was either going to be a Dodge. I really don't care. I don't have like a specific brand that I prefer. If I was going to choose, I would have loved to get like a 2017 F350, just because it's like the same exact cab that's on my F-150. It's like literally, I think they use the exact same cab. It's just a different everything else. So like I'm already familiar with it, you know, I'm already comfortable with it. I know I fit well in it, all that shit. This was kind of like just a surprise. I was like, well, I know a lot of people that have Duramaxes. Everyone's always like Duramax this, you know, Dodge this, Dodge that, Ford, whatever. I just kind of have to develop my own opinions. And that's kind of why I wanted a stock truck. I didn't want something that was all souped up. And with low miles, I mean, 130,000 miles is pretty low. If you can't tell in the video, it's in really, really good shape. Has minimal rust. So I don't know what state it was in before the guy that I bought it from. I don't know where it came from, but it's very minor. I think this summer I'm going to plan on doing some sort of, you know, rust prevention paint or something, just kind of wipe off the top coat and call it good. Modifications wise, what it came with was it has airbags in the back. I don't know if it's leveled in the front. It kind of seems like it's a little taller in the front, but I know for sure airbags in the back. And then also came with the wheels and tires, and they're like new tires, which is nice. Also the mirrors. The mirrors were an upgrade. I think those are the newest style mirrors you can get for them. I need to get the turn signals because the running lights and the turn signals and the blinkers aren't currently working, or they're not connected or something. But they do have like a little neat backup light, which I don't know if it really helps anything, but it's there. There's this little light right there. It lights up, which is kind of nice, and they're heated. I think they're the Amazon cheapos, but they look pretty similar to the real ones. I put the box on it because it's the same box. That was another perk. The ProTech box that I have is the exact same size as the F-150, so I could reuse it. So that was kind of nice. I think the worst part, or the worst condition part that's on this truck is the running boards, because they're made by Shitty Built. It's really Smitty built. That's what I call them. The steps are all worn off. The chrome is all freaking bad shape. So I don't know, I'll probably end up just taking those off at some point or whatever. For now, I'll just leave them in the winter time, but they probably deflect some sort of rocks. So the only things that I've done so far is, mind you, I've only owned this for like a few weeks, but the first thing that my wife actually enticed me to do was get new headlights. And I just went with stock ones because I don't like the Angel Eye stuff. I'm not into the making it look like a new one, because it doesn't look like a new one. It looks like a cheap new one, my opinion. And then I just went ahead and got some new stock ones, and then I went and put some diode dynamic LED bulbs in the just the low beams. I ordered like some new badges because the old ones are kind of faded, so I'm just going to replace those with some new ones. Just little cosmetic stuff right now. The truck technically needs nothing. What I'm going to end up doing is more than likely an exhaust and an intake, and then maybe delete the EGR. I need to read more into that, if that's that big of a deal or not. Everyone says to delete the EGR, but I don't know diesels enough to know if I'm hurting it or if it makes a fucking difference, if I can spend the $600 somewhere else. I need to do a little bit more digging on that, but for sure exhaust. For sure, an intake at some point, more air, more flow is always better. And being that this is the smaller intercooler of all the generations, you want to have as much flow as you possibly can. So that's one thing that will be on the list of things to get sometime down the road. I'd like to go through and do bigger hot side and cold side pipes, you know, get the bigger like 3-inch diameter, because I think the stock ones are 2.5. Also did order some new Bilstein shocks. I got the 5100 series for the front and rear, because the back shock it was leaking when I got it, so I'm assuming there's nothing really left in the shock by now. That was pretty recent to him. He said, oh, there is one thing wrong, and this truck has a leaky rear shock. I was like, oh, done deal. I don't want it anymore. I don't want to like have to buy a truck and then dump like $2 or $3 grand into it right off the bat, because I like the way it sits. It's stock. I know it's been reliable, you know. I know that there are things that can eventually go wrong, but having like an exhaust to keep the EGTs down, you know, maybe a programmer so I can see the temperature, but even then, you know, I'm sure this truck has towed all kinds of shit and it's never had a problem. I'm just going to keep my eye on the temp gauge. That's all I can really do for right now. But yeah, anyways, really happy with the transition. It's definitely different driving a diesel everywhere. You do have to kind of park in the back 40, which I kind of did anyways, but you can't just go ahead and zip into a parking lot and get the front row. Overall, like I said, I feel very fortunate that I was able to do the trade. So you'll be seeing more of this truck show up. You know, like we'll go get hay every once in a while, like I said, with the horses, or you know, towing the Samurai, obviously. So this kind of gives me a more kick in the rear to get the Samurai done sooner. The last thing is that my last truck, we named it Levi because the color of that truck was technically code was blue jean blue. So we named it Levi. And so I was like, man, I gotta name this truck. I was like, I don't even know what to call it. And so I was like thinking it's kind of cheesy, but LLY, I was like, I gotta do something with like LLY. And I was like, oh, I'll do Stanley, because I use Stanley tape measures. And so I was like, that's perfect. So I'll call him Stanley. So the official name of this guy right here, his name is Stanley. So we're gonna welcome Stanley to the family, and hopefully he's gonna be able to take care of us just as well as the F-150 did, if not better. And already I've towed about like a ton and a half of hay with it, with our horse trailer, and it's so much better. It's like you can't even freaking tell there's a trailer back there. That's what I needed it for, so it's doing its job. And I love the heated seats. If you like Duramaxes and stuff like that, and if you know any info or any sort of advice of what you wouldn't do or what you would do to your own truck, that just from your past history or friends that you know of, please let me know, because I'm able to search it online, but I don't really know what to search for, and it's kind of hard because you can like pick apart anything online. So it's hard to like say this truck is 100% problem free or it's a total piece of shit. If you could please at least just like let me know if there's something that I don't know about. Like I said, I've already done the turbo mouthpiece, and I'm already planning on doing an exhaust and an intake and things like that. So thank you for checking out the new truck, Stanley. It's going to be a great addition to our household and our farm. I'm pretty excited to see this truck last a long time. I have no intention of ever needing to get rid of this truck now that I have a diesel. Whereas with the gas truck, I knew it was going to kind of be, at some point we would grow out of it. And that's what we did, unfortunately. But we got a good one here. I'm excited to see how this truck does in the long run, and I don't think it'll be an issue. But with that being said, thank you for watching another episode on the Johnny Moon Garage. And this one's a little bit different because I'm not working, but it pertains to the garage because it's going to drag a project in there. It's going to drag it out. So thank you for watching again, and we will see you next time on another episode.